Formally, right now, I'm in Canada, and I can walk right up to these big rocks, but I won't cross the line marked by them, because on the other side, it's already the United States of America. You can see the Canadian flag on this side and the US flag on the other side, so this house, this tree, and everything there are on the American soil. If I were to cross the line marked by these rocks, I could be arrested for an illegal border crossing. They have monitors installed everywhere. See this white birdhouse thingy? Here on the left you can see the aerial cable, see? And in this hole they have a camera. In fact, several cameras that are monitoring me right now.
Которые сейчас снимают нас.
People, today I will show you how people live on the border where they even have buildings that are part in the United States, part in Canada. I'll show you where you can cross the US border without even a passport and where you'll have to undergo a very thorough border check. Judging by the sound, this is an electric fence. To be honest, I don't want to test my theory. I'll show you the tunnel that had been made to smuggle weed between the countries. They even scanned this road with a special scanner to see if there were any cavities under, and the results were that there were none. I'll also show you a tiny remote island with just 2 people living on it that ended up being in no man's land. Today, I will show you how people live in one of the most unusual spots on our planet on the border of the United States of America. Right now, I'm on the Canadian soil, and across the water, that island over there is the American soil. It's very close. For example, I feel the rain drizzling now, and over there, you can see it pouring from the cloud real hard. I can even hear the thunder. The area is fitted with a mind-blowing number of surveillance devices, and border agencies patrol the area all the time and generally keep watching each other very closely, despite the fact they don't really have a physical border between the countries. This is Lyadov reporting to you on how people live on the border between the USA and Canada. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you like it.
Are you subscribed to our channel? Not yet? The sad thing is that Anton can't go on his next adventure until you do. So pretty please, subscribe now. That's right. Go ahead, click subscribe. Well done and thank you. We can continue now.
Locals like to joke that the border separating Canada and the United States was hand-scribbled following some wild party, probably in the wee hours of the hangover morning. And they aren't completely wrong about the hand-scribble part. In absence of technologies like GPS in the 19th century, they decided that the best approach would be to draw the line along the 49th parallel, and thus created the world's longest state border, stretching for over 5,500 miles. A train ride from Moscow to Vladivostok in Russia covers about the same distance and takes a whole week to do it. The only document describing the US-Canadian border is this piece of paper, the 1783 Treaty of Peace, consisting of about 500 words. For comparison, these days, it's easy to find egg cooker manuals that are far more detailed. This one has 2,000 words, for example, and the way they wrote down things back then were like, thence down along the middle of that river, then along the said highlands which divide those rivers, and so on. All of which makes you kind of wonder, what rivers? What highlands? This is the only part of the US that both borders on Canada and is in fact separated from the rest of the United States by 25 miles of the Canadian territory. The entire population of this US exclave is about 1,000 people. An amazing place, really. It's called Point Roberts. You can only get here by driving through Canada. So here I am at the border control. How are you? I'm fine, thanks. Where are you headed? To the US area. Where are you from? I'm from Russia, Moscow. When are you going back? Today. Where are you staying tonight? In a hotel in Vancouver? Or are you a student? No, I'm not a student, I already graduated. The border guard told me to turn left, go down, and wait for the car search in the parking lot. They asked me why I got this idea to go to this area and why I take such interest in this enclave. I must say that I never shared or supported any kind of conspiracy theories, including the ones that Americans hate Russians. That's not true. You never feel anything like that if you come to New York City or Washington, D.C. or any other place where flocks of Russian tourists come all the time. But this place in particular doesn't get that many visitors from Russia, so I think that's the reason the border check was very thorough. They asked a lot of questions, like why I thought of going to this enclave, how I found out this enclave even existed here. I said, well, I like to learn things, so I just kept Googling stuff and found this information. They asked, have you visited other enclaves? I said, no, I haven't been to any other enclaves. The town is so small that you can literally see what's going on the other side of it if you used a good pair of binoculars. If you follow the town's main street, it will take you here. An amazing, stunning view of the ocean.
Это океан.
This place quite literally feels like the end of the world. Look at these pillars in the water. They make me imagine that this could be a site where something like Game of Thrones' House of Greyjoy fortifications could have been standing. This part of the ocean is home to whales. The sign here lists the local sea life like orcas, grey whales. Here is a bench with such a sad romantic plaque saying, in loving memory of Alex and Vivian, now enjoying these sunsets in the eternity forever. Some dead squid or something. This coastline is where this unusual enclave ends. They have a lighthouse that's working, sending signals. Living here involves some serious risks due to a constant tsunami threat. They have a network of roads here that are officially called tsunami evacuation routes and were built to help evacuate people from the area in case of danger. The flooding threat here is very serious.
Соответственно, перемещаются, уровень воды здесь поднимается довольно высоко.
And while you might feel like this is the end of civilization, it's all very neat, with neat and practical signs like no beach fires or keep your dog on the leash. The town's entire population just exceeds 1,000 people. All the property close to the ocean has been built to allow for high tides or, in the worst case, tsunamis. As you can see, the ground floor is meant to withstand flooding and contains nothing that could be harmed by it. Local community, both here in the US enclave and in Canada right next to it, take special care to educate all local residents about the tsunami threat and how to respond to it, because this threat is real and it can destroy houses and roads alike. There are community groups that circulate useful information about what to do and where to go in case of a tsunami. I printed a copy of such guidelines from the local website. Tsunamis are typically caused by underwater earthquakes. If the earthquake occurs far from the coastline, the warning usually comes early enough. The closer it happens to the shore, the less time people have to run for their lives. To deal with this, special community groups assign each local household to work out an evacuation plan for their family. And by plan, they mean to assign roles. Who does what? For example, dad keeps the car ready and knows all the evacuation routes. All in all, they say, the better you're prepared, the higher your chances of survival in case a really powerful tsunami were to hit the coast. Every local resident must learn first aid protocols and techniques. Point Robert's evacuation routes are all elevated really high above the sea level to make sure they stay above water at all times. Each family's emergency protocol allows 15 minutes at most to get to any of these routes. Every local resident must have 3 emergency kits ready at all times, one in the home, one in the car, and one at work. Each kit must include a first aid kit, a sleeping bag, a tent, a portable radio, a flashlight, a pocket knife, and a whistle. And it makes complete sense. If you end up lost somewhere, you can blow your whistle to let people know where you are. On top of that, some non-perishable food and water disinfectants. Everyone is advised to have a water desalinating kit too.
Средства очистки для воды всем даже советуют иметь при себе так называемый портативный опреснитель.
The truth is, people here like to stock up on food anyway, tsunami or no tsunami. Given that the entire town is served by one grocery store and one convenience store that is open whenever the owners feel like it, the prices are, well, pretty good. You can get a bottle of wine for like $9. Of course, some wines are twice as cheap in Russia, but mostly it costs about the same. A pound of beefsteak costs $8. In Costco, for example, it's $4.50, but the main problem for the locals here is that the food supply depends on the delivery routes and schedules. This is what the local shelves look like during the COVID pandemic. If the deliveries are disruptive for whatever reason, people's only option is to go shopping at Canadian stores. But there, certain limitations apply.
There's a list of things that you're not allowed to bring here from Canada, such as, for example, tomatoes, potatoes, onions, and a number of other things. We buy those in the mainland US and bring them over here as goods in transit.
Goods in transit means that first you drive 25 miles to the nearest store in the mainland US, and on your round trip you'll have to cross the border a total of 4 times. But that's not all. You aren't allowed to, say, eat an apple or a tomato on your trip back if you get the munchies as you drive, because all the purchases are sealed and the seal must not be broken until you arrive to your destination back in the US.
Guys, if you like my video and if you like what we're doing, I would really appreciate if you support us on Patreon, on Pioneer, or on PayPal, and we try to make even more great films from new dangerous places for you. Thank you. All the links are in the description. Please donate. Здесь также нет дантиста, здесь также нет ветеринара, здесь нет госпиталя.
They don't even have a dentist here. No vets, not even a proper hospital. No school. There's only one elementary school, that's through to the 5th grade only, and then after that the kids have to travel to the mainland to go to middle school and high school, crossing borders every time, traveling 25 miles each way through Canada until they reach the US territory, where they can go to school. The local entertainment scene is mostly about nature, for those who enjoy walking a dog or jogging along the coast. Steve lives in Canada and comes here on weekends. It's very quiet here. That's why we like this place. It's just a 30-minute drive from Vancouver. Are there no restaurants here? No, there aren't. There was one. It was here for 30 or 40 years, and it only opened on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. For a long time, the very existence of Point Roberts was regarded as a sort of aberration, and plans were made to sell or rent this territory out to Canada. But after the end of World War II, the deal never went through. The US realized that if any hypothetical unfriendly nation were ever to threaten the country from the ocean, this tiny piece of land could come in very handy for deploying long-range weapons to target such potential enemies. I actually had no idea that the United States owned quite a bunch of strategically located tiny pieces of land all over the world, and some of them are thousands of miles away from the American continent. For example, the island territory of Guam in the Pacific Ocean is literally across the world from the United States. When World War II broke out, it would have been a perfect place for an American airbase, and the US planes would have had an easy time reaching and bombing Japan, which is why Japan attacked Guam first thing, the same day it attacked Pearl Harbor. Today, Guam hosts a large US military base that's watching over North Korea. Palmyra Atoll is yet another remote Pacific island that could have been of service to the US during World War II and was also attacked for the same reason. Wrecked wartime airplanes can still be found on the atoll today, and the number of temporary residents on the island never exceeds a few dozen. Today, the only residents on the atoll are environmentalists who track shark migration routes and study the local wildlife. In total, the United States of America have about a dozen of such places across the globe, and they are called the US territories. Some people think that the United States consists of more than 50 states because of this, but that's not true. The US territories are not states, although they are overseen by the US federal government. Probably the most unusual place on the US-Canadian border is Machi Seal Island, the size of about a dozen football fields. They wanted to review the status of Point Roberts. There was some talk about giving it up in Canada's favor, but then the US realized the strategic importance of this place. You can fire guns from here. There's not gunfire here today, and no plans for it anytime soon. In fact, Point Roberts has the reputation of the most quiet and safest place in America. It's one of Canada's best scenic locations. Right across is the American territory. When the tide is low, you can literally walk right to the border, although that won't go unnoticed or unpunished. But you can actually do it, and people have done it. There have been reports in the local news about arrests that were made. Right now, the tide is low, and when the weather is good, you can see really far enough to note the gas prices. Gas prices in the American town of Point Roberts are indeed something of keen interest to the Canadians residing nearby. Check out the price at the US gas station, $0.65 per litre, and compare it to the Canadian price of 1.33 Canadian dollars, which equals $1, and that's about 30% more expensive, which is why all the Canadians like to go to Point Roberts to fill their tanks. If you convert it to rubles, it equals 44 rubles per litre, much like at home in Russia, but the perspective shifts when you find out how much people make here. Can you guess, for instance, how much this guy in a baggy yellow sweatshirt makes per month? By the way, he agreed to go on camera on the condition that we show his cool truck in my report. Doesn't it remind you of the truck in the Brothers 2 movie? Really cool exterior with a sticker on the bumper, and everything is so shiny inside. Incidentally, check it out, he keeps 2 loaded rounds for a revolver within reach. He does cargo shipment gigs and also sells blueberries that he grows himself on a plot of land near the border. So, what's your guess? 3, 5, 7 or 10k per month? On the average, I make about $10,000 per month. That's my total income. 10,000 Canadian dollars equals 7,000 US dollars, or almost 500,000 rubles. Today, Canada ranks 13th in the world in terms of standard of living, ahead of the USA, UK, and Japan. Russia ranks 49th. Even though Russia and Canada have a lot in common in terms of territory and climate, Canada's coldest region is inhabited by the indigenous people, and the average summer temperature there is around 5 degrees Celsius. The average monthly salary in Canada is higher in the north too, about 6,000 Canadian dollars. The population in the north is scarce. Most people live down south. Look at this satellite photo taken at night. You can see the lights most clearly along the US-Canadian border. That's where all the major cities are in Canada, such as Vancouver, Montreal, and the capital city, Ottawa. Speaking of crime rates, Canada is at least 3 times safer than the United States. Most crime in Canada is related to drug trafficking. Judging by the sound, this is an electric fence. To be honest, I don't want to test my theory. Zero Avenue is the name of this street, now famous for what has probably been the most audacious crime of the last 20 years around here. Right here, back in 2005, they found an underground tunnel that was dug out as a secret passageway across the US border. The law forbids any kind of construction activity within 20 feet of the actual border, so to dig the tunnel, these guys had to hide what they were doing. They bought a big piece of land so they'd have legit reasons for any such activity.
Причем он таким образом выбрал участок, что одно здание, одно строение находилось на...
And it wasn't just a piece of land. They'd picked the one with a hut on it, and made sure that on the US side of the border, right across from it, some 360 feet away, there was also a house. Border agents noticed a suspicious routine on the newly bought property. Every day, the 3 owners would arrive with some tools and then stay in the hut all day, and every evening, they'd have a truckload of soil leaving the property.
Оттуда уезжает, значит, грузовик.
The police didn't have enough to get a search warrant until they had accidental help. One night, a woman was arrested for trespassing on the property, and the police questioned her about what she'd seen there. She reported seeing a large cardboard sheet concealing what looked like an entrance to an underground tunnel. The agents then observed the property until the tunnel was completed, and these guys did a pretty thorough job of it. And as soon as it was ready, the gang showed up on the other side with bags full of marijuana. An arrest was made. They were caught with 92 pounds of weed on them. Canadian law actually allows to have no more than 1 ounce of marijuana on a person. In the United States, only 6 states out of 50 allow the same. And this area looks like it could be somewhere in Russia's north, like Murmansk or something. But in fact, this is Canada. And it's just half an hour drive till the US border.
Мы находимся буквально там в получасе езды от границы с Соединенными Штатами.
Crazy, right? You're driving on a perfectly ordinary city road, but then all of a sudden, on your right, you see Niagara Falls. Unbelievable! To give you an idea about my school grades, I found out that Niagara Falls is located on the border separating Canada and the United States just one day prior to visiting it. This is a parking lot for visitors to Niagara Falls. The river is over there, you can see it. There's always a rainbow here. It looks absolutely amazing, with one end in the USA and the other one here in Canada. The air here is always full of water drops. It feels like it's raining. You can see a person over there with the umbrella. It's always wet here, although right now I'm standing pretty far away from the falls. See what happens to the cars parked here. They get this coat of ice all over. You can see that this car has been here for a while, and some people even use special screens for their windshields, like over here. Take a look. This car probably belongs to someone with experience, maybe someone from the local staff. The mist that rises from the fall gets you soaking wet, and even if you're 100 yards away, turns to ice and attaches itself on any surface, like railings, lampposts, which is why absolutely everything here looks like a snow forest in Narnia. When the fall was discovered back in the 18th century, the rich bought the land in the area, built a tall fence, and charged those who wished to see it. Poor people had to look for holes in the fence to take a peek. Today, Niagara Falls is one of the world's top 5 most popular places for suicide, together with Japan's Suicide Forest and the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Most of the jumpers, that's about 70% of them, jump from the Canadian side. It is known that on the American side of the falls, the survival rate is 0, and it's pretty understandable why. You can see lots of really big rocks at the bottom of the fall there, and the current there isn't strong enough to prevent the body from crashing on them.
Количество валунов, а поток воды не настолько сильный, чтобы отбросить человека в реку.
People, if you liked this video, share it with your friends. It really helps promote the video.